Welcome to this tutorial on changing color of objects in the photo editor GIMP. We're going to be looking at changing the eye color in this image today. You see here the image in front of you is one that I've already edited and changed the eye color. You can see the layer here. If I turn it off, you can see the original eye color, which was quite a dull blue color. So in this tutorial we'll be looking at using layers, using layer blending modes, and using layer masks. Let's get started. I'm going to close this image and open up the original image. I can do this by finding the image in the folder, clicking on it, holding the left mouse button and dragging it over the GIMP workspace. Now I have the image in front of me. I want to select first of all this eye here, or you can start with this one. I'm going to zoom into the image to make it easier to make the selection. You can do that by pressing 1 on the keyboard and then scrolling across to the eye by using this space, the scroll bar at the bottom. Now in order to select the eye, I'm simply going to use the ellipse select tool. You can find this here in the tool menu. It's already here for me. If you don't find it, it may be under the rectangle select, and you can find that by right clicking and selecting then ellipse select from the menu. With the ellipse tool selected, I'm going to left click and scroll down over the eye. It doesn't matter if you don't get it right the first time. You can use these boxes in the corners or these rectangles at the sides to readjust the size of the selection box. We're going to come back afterwards and touch up the edge of this area once we've changed the eye color, so it doesn't have to be 100% accurate either straight away. You notice we're also going over on top of the eyelid here too, but we'll fix that later using a layer mask. So next we're going to fill this in with one color. It's important that you use any other color other than black or white. So here I've selected red. You can select the color by clicking on the foreground color and selecting the color from this area here and clicking OK. Next I'm going to select the paint bucket tool. I can find that under Tools, Paint Tools and Bucket Fill, or by pressing Shift B on the keyboard. Before I fill this in, you need to select a blank layer to put the color onto. If you don't select a blank layer, then you won't be able to get the effect correct, because we need to put it onto a new layer, and that layer needs to be blended using a blending mode with the layer below in order to achieve the effect we want. So to do this, I'm going to go to the layer menu and go to layer, new layer. I'm going to call the layer name eye color and then click on OK. So now if I click anywhere inside the selection, it fills inside the selection with the color red. If we didn't fill this selection, if we didn't make a selection, then it would fill the entire layer with the color red. So in order to then deselect this area, we need to go back to select and then click none. Now we need to move across to the second eye. We can use the scroll bar at the bottom to scroll across to the second eye, and again select the ellipse selection tool. Left click and drag over the second eye and adjust the selection area as required. Again, we're going to go back and select the paint bucket tool called Bucket Fill, and we're going to use this color red to fill this in. And we're going to again deselect this by going to select and none. You'll notice now on the layer above this how we have our two red dots which are covering the eyes. In order to blend this with the layer below, then we need to change the layer blending mode. You can find this over here next to mode, where it says normal with an arrow pointing downwards. If we select here, we need to choose the layer blending mode overlay. And now you can see the eye color has been changed. At this point we want the whole image to fit the screen. We can do this by using the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Shift-J, and now we can see both eyes easily on the screen. So we need to change first of all the color, and we also need to touch up this color using a layer mask. So first let's get the color correct. We can do this by changing the hue saturation of this eye color layer. You find the hue saturation tool underneath the colors and hue saturation. You can come down here to hue and you can change the color of the eye by just moving this slider across. I'm going to choose green, as you saw in the image at the start. You can also increase or decrease the saturation of the color by using this slider here, and also the lightness by making it lighter or darker with this slider here. Once you're happy with your color, you can click on OK. Now we've changed the color of the eyes. We want to make this look a little bit more realistic. You can see here and here on the eyelids that you have some color spilling over, and also you can see here the highlight, which should be white, looks rather odd because it's green at the moment. We're going to use a layer mask and the paintbrush to resolve this. So in order to create a layer mask for the layer that we're on, we need to do this in the layer panel down here. You have a button here that says add mask that allows non-destructive editing of transparency. So this will give us a non-destructive ability to edit this layer without erasing any pixels. So when I click on add layer mask, you get this dialog box here, and we want this white full opacity. So we click on add. Now this mask here, which is white, is associated with this layer. So a mask will allow you to cover over certain parts of your layer without deleting them. We do this by using the brush tool and the color black to cover them over. So over here in the foreground color, we can click on this little icon, the black white icon, to set the colors back to black and white. And we can select our paintbrush tool, which is here. If you can't find the paintbrush tool, it may be under the pencil, airbrush, or ink, or my paintbrush. You'll get it by right clicking on any one of those and then selecting paintbrush. We also want to change the type of brush we're using. So we can change the type of brush we're using by going to the panel here on the right where the brushes are stored. If you can't find this panel, you should be able to find it by going to Windows, Dockable Dialogues, and finding the one called Brushes here. When we're removing this color, it's better to use a brush that's a bit splattered rather than using one of these solid brushes. So I'm going to select this brush here, or equally this brush would be fine, but it's not recommended to use one of these solid brushes as you won't get a realistic effect. So with this brush selected, the color black in the foreground, I also make sure that I have my layer mask selected. Just click on it once. You can see on the screen the size of my brush. It's slightly too big at the moment, so I need to make it smaller. To make it smaller, you can use a shortcut, which is the square bracket keys on your keyboard. So I'm using the left square bracket now to make it smaller, and I want the size to fit right about the size of that highlight. And I'm going to click in that highlight once, and then click in this one on the other eye once again. And again I'm going to click it again just to remove some of that green color. I'm masking over it, so I'm not actually removing it, but I'm creating a mask. I'm adding black, so it's hiding that. I'm going to select one of the solid brush tools then to touch up the edges of the eye and remove the unwanted green areas. So I'm going to select this one. It has a slightly soft edge on it. And this size is good. If you need to change the size of the brush, you can use the right square bracket key on your keyboard to make the brush larger, or you can use the left one to make it smaller. So this is about a good size, and simply by clicking and dragging over the area, I'm masking out the color so it's no longer visible. And then I'm working around the edges here where it looks a bit odd, just to make the effect look a little bit more realistic and to blend it with the layer below. The useful thing about using the mask tool is if you do make a mistake and you were to go over this, I can easily paint the green effect back by changing my foreground color to white, by switching on the arrow, clicking on the arrow here to switch background with foreground color, and then painting back in the green effect. So if you make a mistake, you can easily correct it this way, and rather going back through several steps of undo. So that's how you can change the eye color or change the color of any object in an image. If you wish to save your image then as a JPEG, remember you need to flatten or combine this first by right clicking in the panel area and either click Merge Visible Layers or Flatten Image. You can then move to File and Export As to export the image as a JPEG or TIFF file. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and thank you for watching.